Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I'm just sitting here drinking my morning coffee, waking up. Got Nova over there tapping around. I think we need to go to the bathroom. Take him for a walk right after this. But a lot of people are asking me in my comments, hey, what do I think about Stan Efferding's vertical diet? Can I talk about it? Part of it, guys, I can't get all the info on his diet because he's charging like $100 for access to it. But the basics of it, I've got mixed feelings about it, and I'll jump into that in a minute. But obviously, what Stan does works for him. No one's going to argue that. The guy is ridiculously jacked. He is ridiculously strong. As a pro bodybuilder, but obviously that's not of interest to me. I'm more interested in the fact that the guy has a total and a Wilks score that is insane in powerlifting. So the guy is, again, mind-bogglingly strong. Very much, by any definition of the word, an elite strength athlete. And he's an older guy, too. So I don't think anyone is going to question what Stan does works for him. But maybe what he does isn't going to be ideal for everyone. Now, as far as the diet itself goes, a lot of people are saying, it seems kind of bro-science. Yeah, it does. But it doesn't seem to be a bad eating plan. In fact, from what I can see of it, it's not even that dissimilar from how I find myself eating these days. Because I do need a lot of whole foods. I need foods that are easier on my GI tract personally, because I eat a lot of food while doing this Bulgarian style training right now. And I may get some squatting film for you guys here in a bit, because I need to get woke up, walk my dog, and start squatting. Got the rest of my plates in yesterday, so I can do this at home. But it's not that dissimilar from how I eat, because looking it over, my understanding of it is he's trying to pick foods that he feels are ideal for gaining muscle without gaining body fat. Now, a lot of it seems to be based around using white rice as a staple carb. Now, before anyone chimes in, white rice is fine. White rice is not fattening. Most of the cultures on Earth that eat white rice as a primary staple in their diet are lean. They don't have diabetes. They don't have obesity problems. Insulinogenic foods are not your enemy. That's one of the biggest myths out there. High insulinogenic foods for people who are physically active and don't have insulin resistance are not correlated with obesity. People need to grasp that. Epidemiology, people who eat tons of white rice are rarely fat. Depends on what they're eating with it. So white rice is a staple carb, and that makes sense, because again, if you want to eat a lot of calories for fueling training, white rice is perfect. It's all starch. Still has decent micronutrients in it, despite it being white rice. Almost no fat. It's got just a little bit of fiber. It's very easy on your GI tract. It's one of the easier starches as far as digestion goes. You can eat copious amounts of it. Again, it's a pure training fuel. So for anyone who needs a lot of training fuel for any sort of high intensity activity, white rice is fine. It's perfect. Again, plenty of elite level athletes at the Olympic level sustain themselves on diets of either white rice or potatoes all around the world. This is not uncommon. Nothing new there. Heavy focus on steak and just lean beef in general is what I would describe it. Yeah, I do that. I probably eat a pound of lean beef every day right now. Again, stuff that's under 10% fat. I try to stick to, personally, like the 3 to 5% lean ground beef. Or lean cuts of steak, like flank steak and things. So as far as him picking steak there, yeah, the same thing. Again, if you're going to eat steak all the time, you could skip on supplements. You don't need creatine, because creatine doesn't work for people who eat red meat, by the way, for those unaware of that. You get more than enough in your diet. That's your creatine non-responders, seems to be people who eat red meat regularly. People jump and say, oh my God, health. Well, depends on how much steak you eat. Again, saturated fat in moderation has never been linked to heart disease. It doesn't. It's not saturated fat in moderation. It's when you eat it in excess. So again, it's going to depend on what type of steaks you're eating. But as far as that goes, yeah, I mean, steak's a good source of vitamins, minerals. Arguable as to the quality of protein. Most people say, well, they're protein sources with a better bioavailability. Yeah, that's true. But that doesn't matter on a really high protein diet. That's what people forget, unless you're talking literally vegan protein sources full of fiber and other stuff. And even then, you could, in theory, still out eat the bioavailability of it if you just consume enough. So people need to remember, and a lot of the benefits of higher protein diets, as far as satiety, as far as energy turnover, TDEE from the thermic effect, all the stuff that you might be looking for someone who's trying to push their metabolic rate as high as possible, it's fine. Any protein will work for that. So I don't know if there's anything magical about him choosing steak other than it is really high in things like iron, creatine, all of that, and it happened to taste good. You can eat a fair amount of it. It's better than chicken. I still do some chicken and turkey, but let's be honest here. Lean beef tastes better. It's easier to eat every day. I think, and I'm not sure, I got mixed things on this. I read somewhere that he's promoting a lot of lean dairy. Again, we come over to some of the highest quality protein. You're finishing out most of the other stuff you need. You may not be getting from the other things there in terms of extra calcium, magnesium, potassium, all that stuff. Most low-fat dairy these days has got vitamin D3 added to it already. So again, another supplement you don't need to worry about at that point. Again, a high-quality protein source to add back to that, balance that amino acid profile back out, even though it may not be necessary. So that works well. I do that every day. I do skim milk. I do fat-free Greek yogurt pretty much every day. And then he has people eating a fair amount of vegetables. Just looking at what I can see, it seems to be, again, a lot of easy-to-digest vegetables so that you get all your micronutrients. It looked like someone was saying somewhere he's promoting oranges, because I got some of that looking at the charts he's got up on his Instagram for the vertical diet. So again, a little bit of fruit. Number of various vegetables to get a balanced micronutrient profile that also reduces the insulin response a little bit from the white rice, so even though that's not really a concern. And basically he has you forcing down large amounts of these foods. Well, if you're eating a diet that's really high in starch, fairly low in fat, high in protein, with a decent amount of vegetable-based fiber, you're getting dairy in there. Yeah, if you wanted to clean bulk, that's kind of ideal. You get really high in starches with glucose-based carbs, large amounts of lean protein, plenty of vegetables, dairy in there. Yeah, that's an ideal environment for lean bulking. Again, as lean as you can expect to bulk. Now, a lot of people say, well, there are people claiming to lose fat. Well, that might be true if you're training at extreme levels, but the average person who comes in and their workload in the gym, what they consider to be high volume, I wouldn't expect a large amount of recomposition when bulking on a system like this, particularly for someone drug-free. But yeah, if you were to follow something like this, because again, the nature of the foods, because what you see a lot of guys who are trying to bulk, they go on to oftentimes really high fat diets, particularly strength athletes, just trying to get the caloric intake they want, and they do end up gaining a bit more body fat. But yeah, if you're doing lean cuts of meat, fat-free dairy, and then lots of rice for calories, yeah, you're obviously going to gain less body fat. And someone who's on a bunch of drugs is going to recomposition easier on something like that. Again, rather than the guys who are just adding extra fat and extra peanut butter and all this other stuff to their diet to try to hit their caloric needs. Well, white rice can do the same thing. It's easy to digest. And that seems to be a big part of what would make a diet like this work. And again, you need to understand there's no reason to be dogmatic. If you wanted to follow basically what he's doing and promoting, I mean, there is certainly a bit of truth to that. It will certainly work. And it's not like strength athletes around the world haven't done this sort of stuff before for many years. It's not really anything new that what I can see. But there's nothing new here. And easy to digest, easy to push down, starchy carb. Lots of vegetables, lots of lean protein sources. Yeah, of course. Of course that should work for any sort of serious athlete. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. That's the same thing I've told people before. White rice is easy to pack down. If you need to bulk and you don't want to bulk using a bunch of fat by just adding peanut butter and extra eggs and stuff like that, because again, you're trying to not gain as much body fat, yeah, white rice works great. And again, you've got a lot of training fuel. You have a lot of training fuel there. So it'll work. I don't think it's anything magical. I don't think there's anything revolutionary from what I can see here. These are just decent food choices for that specific goal. Decent food choices for that specific goal. And you can adjust intake based upon where you are in terms of body weight or what you're trying to do with your recovery and energy turnover. So, again, it looks decent enough. But I guess the question becomes, would I recommend people pay $100 for this? Probably not. Probably not. But you know what? If you have the $100 to spend and you want to get something from Stan Efferding because you're a fan or whatever, by all means, do what you want. But again, this isn't groundbreaking stuff. A lot of it's just common sense dieting and just some food choices that would make sense for a lot of people with strength-based and athletic goals. And I just don't see anything groundbreaking here. Some of it's just basic common sense nutrition. But yeah, it would work. I don't see why it wouldn't. Again, it's not even that dissimilar from how I've been eating since I went over to start doing my Bulgarian style training again. So some of these food choices to me, they do make a lot of sense. They're just common sense for most people who are doing very large amounts of resistance training and high intensity work. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.